Hey guys, welcome back to another Fairy Tale Friday. Today, this fairy tale goes out to a couple special friends of mine, a couple really close friends named Timmy and Isaiah. Timmy and Isaiah live in Utah. They live in Wellington, Utah with their mom and dad, Mark and Amy Collins. And so, guys, this story goes out to you because I know how much you guys like sharks and I know how much you like crocodiles. And so today, let me tell you about the story of the origin of the name Surabaya. Surabaya is one of the very large cities here in Indonesia. It's actually in eastern Java, and it's one of Indonesia's largest cities. So, this is the story of how that area got its name. Many ages ago, right, there was once this great crocodile named Baya. And there was once this great shark named Sura. Now, Baya and Sura were mortal enemies, right? I mean, they fought all the time, right? They would battle and battle and battle, and neither one could ever win because, you see, they were both equally strong, and they were both equally agile and quick, and so, then they could never really win the fight. And so every time they would get into a fight, because they were so strong and so big, then they would just churn up the sea, right? And they would make big waves, and they would bother all of the other fish in the ocean, and all of the crabs and all the other sea creatures would be bothered every time these two would get into a fight. And so all the sea creatures of the ocean came together, and they tried to bring peace, right, between Baya and Sura. But they just wouldn't have it, right? They could not come to peace. And so they just continued to battle all of the time until finally, right, years later, they both became bored and tired of fighting. And so they agreed to negotiate a peace treaty between the two. And so they came together, and the suggestion was made that they divide the world, right, into two separate kingdoms. Sura, the shark, right, he would have control over the seas, and he would prey on the sea creatures, hunt there for his food. And Baya, right, he would hunt on the land, right, and that would be his kingdom. And so the border, right, between their two kingdoms would be the tidal zone. That would be the area where seawater and freshwater meet. You could also say the beaches. That would be the border between the two. And so they agreed to a peace treaty, and Baya lived on the land and hunted there, and Sura, he lived in the sea and he hunted there. But it wasn't very long until Sura began to break the peace treaty, and he began to enter into the rivers and hunt for food there. Well, Baya found out about this, and he became extremely angry at Sura. And so he summoned him into the courts, and he asked him, "But why? Why are you breaking the peace treaty and coming into my rivers and hunting?" Well, Sura said, "I'm a fish. I hunt in the waters. Rivers are water. Therefore, they are my domain." Well, Baya knew that this was a lie. That the peace treaty said that the border was where the salt water meets the fresh water, or the tidal zone. And so he knew, right, that Sura was just lying and trying to enter into his land. And so he called off the peace treaty, and the two went to battle again. And this time, though, it was the fiercest battle that they had ever been in. Sura had bitten the tail of Baya extremely bad and wounded him severely. But Baya, he turned around and he bit the tail of Sura. And he bit that tail almost clean off, so that Sura had to retreat. So he swam back into the sea, and he wasn't seen from again up in the rivers or up on land. And Baya, right, he limped back to his area, and he smiled because he had won the battle. He had won the right to hunt, both on land and at sea. Unfortunately for him, though, because his tail was wounded so bad, it had a permanent bend to the left. And so all of the residents of that area, right, who knew about the battle, well, they were so oppressed, so impressed, and so amazed by the battle that they named their area Surabaya, right? For Sura, the shark, and Baya, the crocodile. And it's still used today for the city of Surabaya. Now, there is an intended moral to the story, right? And what I would like you to do is to guess what that intended moral is. And next week, I will share with you what the intended moral is. So go ahead and leave your comments what you think the moral is to the story. And next week I'll tell you. And so last week, right, I promised to tell you what the moral of the story was to the origin of Lake Toba in North Sumatra. Now there were some interesting thoughts on what that moral might be. Right? Somebody mentioned that they thought, well, the moral might be learn how to swim. Right? Or maybe the moral might be don't marry a fish. The moral might be don't make a promise with a fish. Well, all of those are pretty good. But the intended moral of the story, according to the authors of the book I was reading and translating from, was that you should never break your promise, because when you break your promise, bad things will happen. Well, that's the intended moral of the story. Until next time, this is Ride in Java. I want to thank you for riding with me, and I will see you later. I need to get out of the rain, my friends, because I do not have a raincoat on, see? And I'm going to be soaked here. So until next time, this is Ride in Java, looking for a dry place. I'll talk to you later.